Procurement begins by selecting the right engagement instrument based on the maturity of requirements. Requests for information, RFIs, serve as early market scans to assess feasibility and refine technical and functional needs. Requests for proposals solicit detailed solution responses when requirements are well defined, emphasizing measurable criteria across security, functionality, and cost. Requests for quotation focus primarily on price when specifications are already finalized. Mature organizations use these tools in sequence: RFI to explore, RFP to evaluate, RFQ to transact, ensuring that competition remains fair while each stage progressively narrows the field toward the most suitable partner. Establishing a comprehensive requirements baseline ensures that all bidders address mandatory security and compliance expectations. Core control areas include encryption standards, identity and access management, centralized logging, and support for single sign-on or multi-factor authentication. Regulatory clauses, PCI DSS, HIPAA, GDPR, ISO 27001, or FedRAMP must be referenced explicitly within the statement of work. Data handling requirements should define residency, retention, and deletion policies, as well as expectations for subprocessors. Performance, integration, and reporting metrics provide tangible measures of vendor capability. A detailed baseline eliminates ambiguity, ensuring that all participants compete on equal, verifiable criteria. Evaluation design is the backbone of defensible vendor selection. A weighted scoring model balances criteria across multiple dimensions. Security typically receives 40 to 60% weighting, functionality 20 to 30%, cost 15 to 25%, and support or service 5 to 10%. Pass-fail gates should eliminate any vendor that cannot meet non-negotiable requirements, such as a current SOC 2 Type 2 report. Each narrative response must map to numeric rubrics, linking qualitative answers to objective scores. Traceability to requirement IDs ensures that every decision can be justified during internal review or regulatory inspection. A well-designed evaluation model turns subjective impressions into measurable governance evidence. Supplier due diligence extends beyond product evaluation into organizational assurance. Vendors must provide independent third-party audit reports such as ISO 27001 certification, SOC 2 attestations, or PCI AOC documentation. Evidence of a secure software development lifecycle, SDLC, vulnerability disclosure process, and software bill of materials, SBOM transparency, are key differentiators of mature providers. Historical breach disclosures and corrective actions should be assessed to verify accountability. Financial stability, cyber insurance coverage, and sanction screening are equally important, protecting the enterprise from downstream exposure to insolvency, regulatory penalties, or geopolitical risks. Due diligence is the enterprise's first defense against inheriting external vulnerabilities. Security questionnaires and evidence requests bring transparency into the vendor's internal controls. These should align to recognized frameworks such as NIST 800-53 or ISO 27002 and include questions about penetration testing frequency, remediation practices, and vulnerability management cadence. Supporting artifacts might include network and data flow diagrams, architecture runbooks, and access control models detailing role-based or attribute-based authorization structures. Logging schemas and retention plans validate auditability, while secure coding and deployment documentation confirm engineering maturity. Collectively, this documentation forms a trust dossier that auditors and risk officers can review long after the procurement cycle closes. Clear instructions to bidders are essential to maintaining fairness and procedural integrity. RFPs should mandate structured responses linking each requirement ID to a corresponding answer and supporting evidence. Bidders must follow defined submission formats, avoiding off-channel communications that could compromise transparency. Pricing templates should standardize cost structures across unit tiers, license escalators, and service levels for easy comparison. Rules for redlining contractual terms, declaring conflicts of interest, and disclosing subcontractors must be explicit. These procedural boundaries protect both the buyer and suppliers from disputes, ensuring equal opportunity and consistent evaluation under formal governance rules. Commercial terms often contain the most security-sensitive clauses in any contract. Service level agreements, SLAs, must establish performance thresholds, uptime percentages, mean time to detect, MTTD, and mean time to respond, with financial credits for non-compliance. Data processing agreements, DPAs, define roles as controller or processor and specify breach notification timelines, sub-processor approval conditions, and data deletion obligations. Right-to-audit provisions, patch and vulnerability remediation SLAs, and termination assistance requirements further safeguard operational control. Escrow and continuity clauses ensure data recovery and access continuity if the supplier fails. Collectively, these terms transform legal language into enforceable protection for the enterprise. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Technical validation through proof of concept, POC testing, separates theoretical compliance from practical capability. POCs should be executed in secure sandbox environments with data minimization safeguards. Success criteria should include detection efficacy, integration latency, administrative role handling, and overall system usability. Defined test data sets and measurable performance metrics provide objective comparisons between bidders. A post-POC exit report documents results against predefined acceptance thresholds, capturing lessons learned and ensuring that final selection rests on empirical evidence. By validating solutions before procurement, organizations avoid costly surprises and confirm that vendor claims align with real-world performance. A well-structured costing and total cost of ownership (TCO) workbook ensures that financial evaluation remains transparent and complete. It should encompass one-time acquisition expenses, licenses, hardware, and implementation services, along with ongoing operational costs such as support tiers, training, and managed services. Decommissioning and exit costs must also be forecast to prevent hidden liabilities later. Multi-year net present value (NPV) adjusted for currency fluctuations and inflation enable long-term comparability across competing bids. When properly maintained, the TCO workbook becomes the quantitative foundation for both procurement decisions and future audits, linking value to verifiable cost structures. Risk assessment and exception handling close the evaluation loop. Each vendor's identified weaknesses, such as missing certifications, partial control coverage, or reliance on sub-processors, must be mapped to enterprise risk register entries. Compensating controls and risk acceptance statements signed by the business owner and CISO document how gaps will be managed. Escalation procedures ensure that non-standard approvals are reviewed by governance committees. This formal process maintains transparency while allowing flexibility when risks are acceptable relative to operational benefits. The resulting risk record provides traceability from procurement decision to enterprise governance oversight. Supplier performance management begins the moment a contract is signed. Clearly defined key performance indicators, KPIs, and key risk indicators ensure that expectations remain measurable and enforceable. Typical metrics include ticket response times, patch cadence, backlog of known vulnerabilities, and SLA adherence. Quarterly business reviews should assess both operational performance and the vendor's evolving security posture, requiring updated attestations or certifications as conditions of continued partnership. Change control processes govern the introduction of new features, sub-processors, or integrations, ensuring that no modification undermines agreed controls. Non-conformance findings must trigger formal corrective action plans with documented timelines. Ongoing performance oversight transforms procurement from a one-time transaction into a continuous governance relationship. Transparency is a foundational principle of vendor trust. Contracts and operational procedures must guarantee the enterprise's right to access logs, telemetry, and audit trails relevant to security operations. Vendors should commit to immediate notification of material incidents, control failures, or staffing changes that could affect service integrity. Regular reporting cadences, including security dashboards and vulnerability reports, keep stakeholders informed between formal reviews. Transparency also includes product roadmap visibility and advance notice of end-of-life events, allowing the organization to plan replacements and minimize disruption. By clearly defining information rights, the enterprise maintains situational awareness and reinforces accountability throughout the vendor lifecycle. Supply chain and software assurance have become essential pillars of security procurement. Vendors should submit a current software bill of materials, SBOM, detailing all third-party components, licenses, and update dependencies. Digital signature verification and provenance checks confirm authenticity and integrity during delivery. Policies governing vulnerability disclosure, patch cadence, and rollback procedures ensure that component risks are managed systematically. Exposure management for common vulnerabilities and exposures, CVEs, must include documented remediation workflows and communication protocols. Evaluating these supply chain safeguards protects the organization not only from direct vendor failures, but from vulnerabilities hidden deep within third-party dependencies. Global and regulatory considerations expand procurement complexity for multinational organizations. Data transfer mechanisms, such as standard contractual clauses, SCCs, or binding corporate rules, BCRs, must be incorporated to satisfy cross-border privacy obligations. Some regions impose encryption export restrictions, local hosting requirements, or mandatory certifications that must be validated during vendor onboarding. Contracts should address record retention, e-discovery readiness, and accessibility compliance to satisfy both legal and operational mandates. Additionally, time zone coverage, multilingual support, and regional service presence must be documented to guarantee consistent global response capabilities. A harmonized procurement strategy ensures compliance while enabling consistent service delivery across all jurisdictions. Award decisions must be grounded in evidence and consensus. The evaluation committee should produce a scored summary matrix reflecting all weighting criteria, accompanied by a justification memorandum explaining how the winning vendor best met security, functionality, and value goals. The approval chain, including risk officers, finance, and executive sponsors, validates governance compliance. A red line resolution log captures negotiated terms, while final signed contracts are archived with version control. Implementation readiness checklists verify that operational, technical, and financial prerequisites are in place before the kickoff. Unsuccessful bidders should receive formal notifications and, when permitted, debrief opportunities to maintain transparency and uphold ethical competition standards. The post-award phase represents the transition from procurement to active supplier governance. Vendors must be integrated into existing incident response, vulnerability management, and monitoring playbooks to ensure seamless coordination during security events. Access provisioning should follow least privilege principles and leverage privileged access management, PAM, for sensitive credentials. Vendors should also be onboarded into governance, risk, and compliance GRC dashboards, enabling unified visibility of supplier metrics across programs. Audit schedules, renewal checkpoints, and certification updates must be predefined in the contract to avoid reactive oversight. A structured handover embeds vendor accountability within enterprise operations, transforming procurement outcomes into enduring operational security. Automation and digital procurement tools now play an expanding role in ensuring efficiency and consistency. Centralized procurement platforms can track RFP milestones, version control documents, and automatically calculate evaluation scores. Integration with governance systems allows risk and compliance teams to view vendor status in real time. Automated workflows for contract renewals, SLA reminders, and evidence collection reduce manual oversight and ensure deadlines are never missed. Using secure collaboration portals for bidders enhances confidentiality while enabling transparent communication. By embedding automation into procurement, organizations not only improve auditability, but also gain operational agility in managing complex, multi-vendor ecosystems. Ethics and integrity remain non-negotiable throughout the procurement process. Security leaders must ensure that all participants, internal stakeholders and external suppliers alike, adhere to anti-corruption, anti-bribery, and fair competition policies. Evaluation committee members should disclose potential conflicts of interest and recuse themselves when appropriate. Bidders must certify compliance with all ethical procurement guidelines, including restrictions on gifts, incentives, or undue influence. Maintaining ethical transparency protects the enterprise's reputation and safeguards the credibility of procurement decisions. When ethics are documented and enforced as part of the process, every vendor selection stands up to both regulatory and public scrutiny. Continuous improvement ensures that each procurement cycle becomes more efficient and defensible. Lessons learned from previous RFPs, audits, and performance reviews should be captured in a centralized repository. Metrics such as procurement cycle time, vendor compliance rates, and post-award issue frequency help refine processes for the next iteration. Benchmarking procurement outcomes against industry peers can reveal opportunities for cost savings or quality improvement. Regular process reviews with finance, risk, and legal partners sustain alignment with evolving governance standards. This feedback loop institutionalizes learning, ensuring that security procurement evolves alongside the organization's maturity and regulatory landscape. The connection between procurement and enterprise risk management cannot be overstated. Each vendor relationship introduces third-party and fourth-party risks that must be documented and monitored throughout the contract lifecycle. Security leaders should maintain a consolidated vendor risk register linking supplier controls to enterprise risk categories. Regular revalidation of vendor performance, financial stability, and compliance certifications ensures ongoing alignment with the organization's risk appetite. Integration between procurement and the broader risk management framework ensures that supplier governance remains a continuous, evidence-based component of enterprise resilience. In conclusion, modern security procurement demands rigor, transparency, and traceability from initial market engagement to post-award oversight. Every artifact, from RFI to RFP, scoring model to contract, must document how security, compliance, and value for money were achieved. Enforceable terms, measurable KPIs, and clear governance linkages transform vendor selection into a defensible process that withstands audit and regulatory scrutiny. Post-award integration embeds vendors within the organization's incident, risk, and compliance ecosystems, ensuring that third-party relationships contribute to resilience rather than risk. When executed with discipline, security procurement becomes not just a purchasing activity, but a cornerstone of enterprise governance and long-term security assurance.